Hello everyone, my name is Matt Gingrich. I'm a chaplain with Shipshewana Police Department in Shipshewana, Indiana, and a pastor here in town as well. Jim Bontrager asked me if I would record a quick video just as a bit of a tutorial for you in creating your own videos and content for ICPC. So let's run through some of the nuts and bolts of it really quickly. One of the mistakes that gets made a lot of times in content creation is shooting in a vertical rather than a horizontal video capture. So this may look good on social media. If you're designing something that is going to be recorded and then put straight to social media, this can be a great platform. But when you're trying to incorporate it into a larger project, it actually looks really bad with the boxes around the side. So if at all possible, we want to stick with a horizontal layout for your video. That will enable whoever is putting several different videos together to seamlessly integrate what you have created into a bigger project. Another item for consideration is sound quality. Right now, I just have my phone attached to a stand that is capturing this, but I don't have any internal microphones, and you can sort of hear the resonance within the room. As long as you stay relatively close to your camera or your phone, whatever is capturing the video and the audio, it will be fairly decent. You'll need to make sure that you take care of background noise. You don't want to do it outside where there's a lot of wind that can cause interference. You don't want to do it in a noisy, crowded room where there's other things going on and distracting. Try and find a quiet place to do it. The sound quality isn't going to be great just off your phone, but it's not going to be terrible either. But you'll notice when I hook up a microphone that the sound quality improves dramatically. There are a ton of good podcast mics that are out there and available for you right now that will plug either into your computer or right into your phone. So you need to just check what kind of device you have. Those are an option, and you can obviously hear right away a significant difference in sound quality. But as long as you're careful about background noise, they're not absolutely necessary, except I would say unless you're doing something for like a bigger scale, whether it be a publication or for a conference or something like that. And then a higher quality sound capture is actually pretty important. But just for the rest of this video, I'm going to switch back to the other, just so that you kind of get the feel of that we want to make sure that we're putting these things together well, but also if you don't have the resources to be able to do that, that's not the end of the world. One more demonstration before I get rid of this mic, and that is you can set up your mic something of just outside a frame. So this is just a podcast setup here. I'm just going to scooch the mic down below out of the frame, and hopefully you can still hear that there's a decent sound quality that's being captured, even though it's not visible on the screen. So another thing to think about is framing. You as the subject of your video, you want to be rightly positioned within the camera shot. So what you don't want to do is be too close and cutting off the top part of your head. You also don't want to be too far away. Now you have a lot of head space that's not being used, and the audio quality is going to go down as well. So one of the common mistakes they make in photography a lot of times is we'll put the subject right in the middle, and because our face is the center of that subject, we'll put it in the center of the screen. It seems right when you're doing it, but when you look at it later, you realize, oh, that doesn't look very good. So if you think about dividing your screen up into thirds, it's good if you stand roughly on one of those thirds, kind of angled into the middle. You don't have to do that. It just makes your video a little more interesting. You want to make sure that your head is fully in the shot, and proximity to the camera, again, is going to help give you some decent sound capture. One of the other considerations is lighting. So you want to make sure that you have a good subject lighting. So if you, the speaker, are the subject, you want to make sure that you're lit. You're not standing behind a window. If you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to wash out. Let me give you a quick example of that. So if I'm standing with an open window directly behind me, the light of that window overpowers the subject and the subject gets really dark. But just simply changing the perspective where you don't have that light right behind you, the subject becomes a little more lit. So if possible, have a nice solid background behind you. Again, you're in a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted. There's not going to be a bunch of background noise, but the lighting can be focused on you. That way you sort of stand out from the background as opposed to just sort of blending into the back. One more thing before we move on from lighting, and that is to help capture the lighting, I'm using a little halo stand. They're super cheap. They have a phone holder on them, and you can see the difference between this and this as the light gets turned on. So again, they're super cheap and easy. You can get them on Amazon. It's actually a really helpful thing because one of the other things that can happen is stability issues. So this keeps everything nice and steady as far as background and setting and things like that. And what we want is them to focus on you and what you're saying rather than being distracted by a whole bunch of movement as you're holding your phone, and then they get kind of dizzy as the room sort of spins around them. So make sure it's set in a solid place. Get your distance right, get your spacing right, get your lighting and sound right, and it's just going to make a better video. So let's talk just a little bit about resolution. How high a quality do we want these videos to be? If you're recording them on your flip phone that you've had since 2001, God bless you, man. If I could get back to a flip phone, I would do it tomorrow. But that's probably not going to be the best as far as capturing the video quality that you need for these kind of productions. So at a minimum, if you can capture at 720, and most of our cameras, our phones have some sort of setting for that, anything above that's going to be great. Any of the 1080s are going to be fantastic. It's going to look good when you reproduce it, whether it's online or on the screen. It's just going to make a better overall video if we don't have a lot of high quality videos and then yours, which is super low resolution. So we're not asking you to go out and invest in a bunch of hardware to make this happen, whether it be high-end cameras or microphones. Don't feel like you have to do that. But at the very least, maybe just borrow a friend's phone and say, hey, can I use your super fancy new iPhone for just a second, and then record your video on there. All right, real quick, let's talk about background music. Background music is one of those things, especially when somebody asks you to put a video together, you can have that temptation to get really fancy. Now, if you have a ton of experience making videos, man, go for it. It's going to be great. In fact, Jim Bontrager is fantastic. I've made a bunch of stuff for him, whether it's videos or graphics, and I love the feedback. He's like, hey, can you just tweak this? Can you change this? If you have that kind of experience, go for it. You're going to get good feedback, and hopefully we're going to make a good quality product. But if you don't, I would say go light on background music. So it can be good for filling in, especially if you created something and the sound quality isn't perfect, but it's strong. You can underlay that with a nice quiet background music. Now, you don't want your music and your speaker to be in competition with each other, all right? So you got to make sure wherever those levels are, the music is sitting down below where the speaker is. But if it's going to be part of a bigger project, I would say stay away from that. You want whoever is compiling and doing the final editing to have control over that. And if you've put music on it, they can't take it off. All right, so be thoughtful of that when you're putting it together. Again, also be thinking about those levels. You don't want what you're saying to be lost or distracted by that music. One more consideration when it comes to music, and that is music is copyrighted. So you can't just use your favorite song or whatever is out there. You have to make sure that you're observing copyright laws. Now, there are some things when it comes to educational purposes that you can get around the copyright things, but if you go to YouTube, there is just a ton of royalty-free music out there that they're actually creating for you to use within your content. You just need to give them credit for it. So check that out. Just go to YouTube, type in royalty-free music, and you're going to find a ton of it. Capture that, you can lay it on your video. But again, unless you are creating the final product, I would probably stay away from adding music onto your video. One of the things people don't think about sometimes is what they're doing as far as the actual content of their video. They think about all the logistics, but then when it comes to what they're going to say, they haven't put a lot of thought into it. Especially those of us who maybe serve as a pastor and we talk a lot for a living. We think, yeah, I'll just wing it. It's really important for you to have notes so that you are going down a coherent list. You're covering all the things you want to cover. Also can be good, especially if you're just starting out with videos and you're a little uncomfortable standing in front of the camera. Maybe even write a script out. You can put it right next to the camera so that it doesn't look like you're just looking away off into space. You're just looking right where the camera lens is and setting up some sort of script behind it. The less you can read of the script, the more natural and alive your video is going to feel. But make sure that you have thought through well what it is that you're trying to say, not just all the logistics of how you're setting it up. All right, let's talk one more area here about titles. Titles can be something similar to the background music. If you are the final content creator, go ahead and throw those titles on. If you're not, if you're passing your video on to somebody else, I would say leave them off, because once you put them on, we can't pull them back off. All right. So if we want it to fit in with the theme of the rest of the video, let whoever is doing that at the end put those on. But if you are adding titles, here's just a couple thoughts. Number one, don't go with the coolest font you can find. Sometimes we sort of get lost in that. I'm going to find the coolest font out there. Well, what happens is you put something on that looks really good on your big screen that you're sitting at your desk. But when someone's looking at it, maybe on a handheld device on their phone, your cool font in tiny little print is something they can't even read, especially if they're like me and they have bifocals looking at it. What you want is them to see that information. That's the whole point of putting titles on, to pass on information quickly and effectively. So don't make them frustrated with your video because they can't read it. Make sure those titles are big and bold, something they can see and understand immediately. Another thought with titles is you don't want something to pop up, splash up, and cover up the subject, especially your face, your mouth that's speaking. If you're going to do some sort of description of who you are, titles are great in the lower third down here. They don't really block anything. They don't distract. You can keep talking, and it's going to be just fine. Now, if you aren't adding titles, if you're not the end producer here, one of the great things you can do is send along with your video, hey, here's my name, here's job descriptions, here's departments that I serve, here's some title ideas that I had in there. Encourage them to be adding those in as well later on. So with titles, simplicity is best. It's all about communication of information. So don't let them get lost in the fact that you have awesome graphics going all over the place and they didn't read what it said in the end. So make sure your titles are legible. Just a couple final considerations. As you create your video, make sure that you're making good use of your time. Be clear, be concise. Say what it is that you need to say in a timely manner, considering your hearers. We want them to hear the message and follow with you throughout the whole thing. So be thoughtful of them. Be thoughtful of your background. Make sure that it's not distracting and taking away or cluttering up the message you're trying to communicate. Be considerate of your own appearance. There's something of professionalism that we communicate when we dress appropriately for what it is that we're trying to say. It is amazing how a professional appearance, good sound, good lighting can strengthen and reinforce the message that you're trying to get across. So thanks for taking time to watch this video. I hope it's been helpful. I know it hasn't been a how-to produce these. It's more of a how to think about producing these videos. But our hope is at ICPC that as we work together to create this content, we will be training and equipping chaplains for generations to come. God bless you as you serve. God bless you as you help to strengthen and encourage other chaplains.